So the grinning visage of 80s permed connoisseur of cheap electronic tat and Tottenham Hotspur Football Club can only mean one thing. It's time for part 2 of gamer size Amstrad CPC arcade ports. Alright, the first one's a doozy. This is Double Dragon by Melbourne House, which was part of Virgin at the time. The box claims you'll never have to stand in line to play Double Dragon again. And I don't think anyone would stand in line to play this version of Double Dragon. It's a slow, boring mess. As you see, I could barely stand to play it any longer than that, so you just have to look at a picture of the box. It's an utter mess, but it does have an interesting story behind it, which we'll see on the next video. So, unknown to us poor saps in the UK, messing around with Melbourne House's pitiful attempt at Double Dragon, our European neighbours, or at least those in France, got a completely different version of Double Dragon. And this is it. It was only released on the Amstrad 6128, but it was by Virgin Mastertronic this time. Why they only released this version on the continent, I don't know. It's still not exactly a perfect version of Double Dragon, but it's tons better. It looks and plays a lot like the arcade. It's got a lot more speed to it. It's actually fun to play, which is a lot more than can be said for Melbourne House's version. Virgin, what were you playing at? Don't think you can just hide behind Melbourne House. This is atrocious. This is the reason we left the EU, Virgin. It's all your fault. On to another arcade conversion by those fellows at Virgin Games. This is the Sega Arcade Classic from the Sega 16 arcade board Shinobi. This one is a mixed bag. It looks great for an Amstrad game. It scrolls quite nicely. There's no push scrolling going on here. The sound is pretty much spot on. As you can see, you've got up as you jump, and I admit it took me a little while to figure out how to jump from platform to platform. It's not overly obvious. Now, I'm a big fan of the arcade original of Shinobi. When I bought my first arcade cabinet, it was Shinobi that I actually got. So I've played through the game many times, and I'm also a fan of the Master System version, which a lot of people are. When I first played this Amstrad version, it struck me that this might just be better than the Master System version. And I held that belief until I reached the first boss, Ken Om, and then things changed. See, the thing is that Keno was always a tricky boss for a first boss in a game, but honestly, this guy's unbeatable in this. His projectiles are so quick and random and unavoidable that you really can't beat him. In the end, I gave up, and I never actually completed the first level of Amstrad Shinobi. So, yeah, that's got to count against it. Try it. You might do better than me. Maybe I'm just so used to the original that I'm trying to play it like the arcade. But no, it spoiled it for me. Robocop. Does Robocop count as an arcade conversion? I'd say so.
Serve the public trust. Protect the innocent. Uphold the law.
So impressive to hear this digitized speech there coming out of an Amstrad, even if you did need the 6128 to hear it. Robocop was originally developed by Ocean. It was licensed to Data East to create the arcade coin-op, and then Ocean came up with their own home version, which was part conversion of the coin op, part follow from the movie. It was all very good. It was fantastic on the ZX Spectrum, less so on the Commodore 64, pretty poor on the NES, great on the Game Boy, and this is the Amstrad CPC version. Personally, I think it's probably the best. It takes everything that was good about the ZX Spectrum version and it adds some colour. It scrolls very well for an Amstrad game. It's addictive, it's just playable. I remember buying this. It came with a great poster of the Robocop cover. The iconic thing of him stepping out of the car. That was up on my wall for years. I played this to death. The puzzle sequences are a great way to break up the gameplay. Ocean really hit a winner here with how to develop a movie conversion. Unfortunately, what Ocean would then do was use the same template for many other games. You had the likes of Total Recall, Batman, Terminator 2, which varied in quality, none of which though were as good as Robocop. If you're a fan of the Amstrad, I'm sure you've played this version of Robocop. If you're not a fan of the Amstrad or you don't have an Amstrad, then grab yourself an emulator, stick this on, you'll be hooked, I promise you. The mighty Space Harrier from the Sega arcade game of the same name. This was Elite's conversion. It's something of a technical showpiece for the Amstrad, however it falls flat as a game. It's fast, it looks good, the enemies are wireframe as you can see, however it falls down to a major flaw, at least for me, in that I can't avoid the obstacles. Now, all versions of Space Harrier and its siblings Thunderblade and Afterburner suffer from this a little bit, but this Amstrad CPC version of Space Harrier, it's unavoidable. I cannot avoid these obstacles. There's no rhyme or reason to them. It's random whether or not you avoid them or not, and for me that just kills the game. It's such a shame because otherwise this could have been a great conversion. Rolling Thunder, the game originally developed by Namco, and it was distributed in the West by Atari. Great animation, great James Bond style game. Plays a lot like Shinobi, I always thought, which obviously is not a bad thing. The Amstrad version, as you can see, is okay. It scrolls properly. It's a little bit slow though, a little bit jerky, but it's colourful, it's fun, it's very playable. It's not bad at all. Don't go into this expecting the Sega Mega Drive version, you're getting nowhere near that. It's worth a play, it's by no means the definitive version of Rolling Thunder. I don't think anybody comes to the Amstrad and thinks Rolling Thunder. And finally, for part 2, we have the Amstrad CPC conversion of one of the definitive Sega games. This is Outrun. Now you'd be forgiven for seeing this loading screen as thinking this is going to be good. I certainly did. I remember receiving this for Christmas as a lad. Could not wait to play Outrun at home. Now the static graphics in this, as you see, aren't too bad. But wait until this thing kicks in. Remember, you're supposed to be racing a Ferrari Testarossa, a machine capable of high-speed racing. Yeah, that's about as fast as this game gets. If that wasn't bad enough, US Gold, yes, US Gold again, didn't even bother to put any sound effects in the game other than a doot 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 when you try to turn. No music I could almost understand, even though Outrun's music is iconic, but no sound effects either. Come on, US Gold. What they actually did do was include an audio tape with the original arcade soundtrack on it. I remember being completely disappointed at that as a kid, having to put on a separate tape to listen to the musics of Outrun. These days, actually, it's worked out quite well because our old car doesn't even have a CD player, but does have a tape deck, so I can drive along in a Vauxhall Corsa with a magical sound shower playing and pretending there's a blonde next to me. So, every cloud and all that. So that's the end of Amstrad CPC Arcade Ports Part 2. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any Amstrad arcade ports you'd like me to cover in Part 3, please do let me know. I have a stack already in mind, but there's a stack more I'm sure I haven't thought of yet. This has been Gamer Si, and keep a had.